forgiveness. The idea of forgiveness, what is it? Like, what are the three, or what are the main points for forgiveness? Because we'll talk about the practical parts very quickly here, but just what is forgiveness? And I'll try to make it again as practical as possible. What is forgiveness?
Excusing the other person's actions, trying to understand.
Okay, that's actually, you hit on 2 out of the 3 points. So, number one, if somebody does something to you and you want to forgive them, there's 3 main things that have to happen. 3 main things just for forgiveness, not even getting to reconciliation yet. Number one, you have to acknowledge that some damage was done. If you don't start that some damage was done, you'll never actually get to forgiveness as the person who offends or who gets offended. So the first step in forgiveness, as the person who might forgive or the one who's asking for forgiveness, is acknowledge some damage was done. Because forgiveness is kind of rooted in justice. Okay? So what's the first step? Acknowledging something was done, damage. The next step is quantifying it. Like, how much damage? Like in the Bible, in the parable, what does Christ use as the parable for forgiveness and debt? Give it away, debt. He puts money to it. Like, it's one thing if I walk by you and forget to say good morning in the morning. It's one thing if I punch you in the face when I walk by you in the morning. Right? There's a little bit of that's a little extreme, right? Like, hey, you forgot to say good morning, which I feel like you were ignoring me, but you ran towards me and punched me in the face. Are they the same thing? No. So, but the first step still stands the same. Like, I acknowledged something wrong happened. The next step is putting some sort of price, because it's justice, right? And we even use it in the Old Testament, like eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Is that a bad thing, by the way? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? If somebody brings it up to you and says, it's in your Bible, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, can you say it's a good thing? How do you defend that? If some atheist says, here's your Bible. Is that in the Bible, by the way? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. How do you defend that as a Christian to an atheist? You're like, oops, God maybe messed up back then. We have to be ready, guys, because a lot of times, yes, Habib. Give him the other cheek. Very good. So that's one thing, is like basically there was much more grace in the New Testament. But why would God say an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth? Because here's one of the problems. If we don't study our Bible, the people who are attacking the Bible are going to gain more souls towards destruction than we are going to gain to salvation. So it's not only we're learning the Bible and understanding it for our benefit, but for the benefit of other souls. So it's not like saying, oh, look how much I know. But I know so I can use it to win my salvation and the salvation of others. So let me give you a really quick thing on that, because I think it's important. The eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. In Genesis, the book of Genesis, I think it's chapter 4. Don't quote me on this, but I'll get you the verse before I leave. There was a guy named Lamech. Anybody heard of Lamech? He was Noah's grandson. Lamech gets injured by a boy. Injured meaning like he just hurts his leg or something. And then Lamech says, I have killed a boy for wounding me. Like, he brags about it to his wives. So again, think of like the proportionality. A kid hurts this guy named Lamech, who's Noah's grandson. What does Noah do? What does Lamech do? He kills him. So what does God say to the people then at that point? Enough. What's the most you could do? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So how bad was it before God said that? It was so savage that a guy could hurt your leg, you kill him. So now that I ask you the question again, is an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth good? It's much more just than if you hurt my rib and I kill you. Do you see that? So now if you explain that to an atheist and you show him that context, does it make more sense why God commanded an eye for an eye for a tooth? Does it seem just or not? Absolutely. Do we do it now until today in the court system? We do. If someone says, you robbed this person of this much money, you're supposed to pay that back, like restitution. So even till today, it's still used in the court of law. And by the way, there's all kinds of rules, you have to have a witness, you have to go to court, you have to do, it wasn't like an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, you just do it right there. But basically, you do a whole review of the case. It goes before judges, they say, yep, this guy poked your eye out. The most you can do to him is do what? Poke his eye out. Or like the system does it for you. So does that make more sense? Did you hear now eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? Does it seem brutal now? No, it seems like now it's less savage than what they were doing. So God's like, enough of the savagery. Okay? So back to what we were saying. The first part of forgiveness is acknowledging the fact that something happened. Right? You did something. You hurt me in some way. Or I was hurt in some way. The second part is doing what? Quantifying it. Think of it as justice, like a debt. You know, one guy owed 1 denarii, one owed 100 denarii, and so on and so forth. So Christ himself put like a value system on that. Because not all, actions against you or done by you are the same. Right? And the third thing is making a decision. To know that something happened, to know that it was big or small, and choosing to forgive it. So if you know these 3 steps, you complete forgiveness. If you try to jump to 3 and just say, look, I don't want to talk about it, I don't care what happened, I forgive you, you may be wrong. You may be the offender. So first, you kind of got to get the first 2 things. Like, look, this happened. It really, this is how much damage it did, whether it was physical or emotional, whatever. But I forgive you. But those 3 steps. That's a sort of productive and accurate or practical way to think about forgiveness, so that you don't skip a step and think, I don't even want to think about what you did, but I forgive you. Well, then I don't know what you forgive me for. So you agree to these 3 steps. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, forgiveness is only one of 4 things in reconciliation. Anybody know where that word reconciliation like rings a bell in church and liturgy? The prayer for reconciliation. Okay. It happens every single liturgy, except for one liturgy. The one we pray on Thursday, some people's favorite liturgy, the shortest liturgy of the year, Covenant Thursday, right? We don't pray prayer of reconciliation, right? Why? Because it hasn't happened. It's incomplete. So we're trying to remind ourselves of that. But imagine if something happens all the time. It's important. Like when you say a prayer of thanksgiving, think about why we say it all the time. The Lord's Prayer, we say it all the time. Think about that. Like, why would the church? So don't just. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Forgive us our daily bread. Forgive those especially against it. We're missing out. And there's a reason why that's the only prayer that Christ taught the disciples. Like every letter of that prayer should be something we think about. Read books on that prayer. If you're smart, if you're wise. But if you get to the point where you're even just saying it slowly, but not even listening to a word you're saying, it's not wise. So, reconciliation, probably not an Apple guy. So is it tap or swipe or? Yeah. So how do I get to the next line? Swipe. Okay. All right. What's a good time for forgiveness? Just to be clear. When's a good time for forgiveness? To others, from others, what's a good time? Always. That's an easy answer. And by the way, this is one of the most foolish things we can do. Like, there's a lot of sins like in range, and this one was hard to see as a sin. This one was pretty easy. This is one of like a fundamental sin that there's no excuse for because it's in your control 100%. Like other ones are like require all kinds of things, and reconciliation is part of that. Like there's a lot of things that have to take place. So the good time for repentance is repentance and forgiveness is always. Those 2 things always. They should always be on your mind. Repentance and forgiveness, and they do have a lot of overlapping traits. We say this, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. If you read that very carefully, we are being forgiven with the same exact amount of forgiveness we offer to others, with the intensity, with the sincerity. So if you're faking sincerity, faking forgiveness to others, God will not forgive you, will not forgive us. So you're like, it's like someone who's like lying to themselves. Like someone who knows they're buying a fake ticket and knowing they're going to get caught, and they're excited because they just bought a cheap ticket. Right? You're going to get caught, right? Like the same ticket that you sold to somebody else, you went and bought it for somebody else, and you're not going to get on the train or plane, but you're excited. Okay? So, and how often does the Lord forgive us? Anybody have Bibles on hand or like verses? Lamentations 3:22, 23. And I have this in my room, and I look at it when I wake up. It's one of my favorite verses in the world. Anybody have it? Lamentations 3:22, 23. You have it? Lamentations. Wait, go ahead. 22, 23. Chapter 3, verse 22 and 23. Got it? Read loud.
Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness.
Yeah, how new are they? Every morning, right? So if you think about his, if we didn't have God's compassion every morning, we'd be consumed, like we'd be dead. If he actually gave us what we deserve, we'd all be dead, like instantly. Okay? And how often are they renewed? Basically, every day you wake up, every single day. So this is a fact of life. I'm going to mention this. It's not like I have to ask you to raise your hands. Okay? As long as we live and deal with one another, we will hurt one another. That's a fact. Okay? We could do it intentionally or unintentionally. Right? But I'm telling you right now, every one of us has been hurt by someone. Every one of us has hurt someone. That's a fact. Okay? So we all agree on that? Even if we don't, it's a fact, so it doesn't matter. All right? And we're all human beings. We're all sinful. And so as long as we're human beings, we have weaknesses, including being hurt and hurting others. So now that we've established that, nobody can say, well, this is not a problem for me because I don't ever get hurt. Okay, or nobody can say I've never hurt anybody, I'm good. Okay, we all know we have this problem. So now we get to the, facts of life. We hurt one another and we are hurt by one another, and just let's accept that. Now let's figure out like the next steps. Before I do this, what is a common response to being hurt? Let's be honest. What's a common response to being hurt by someone? What? Anger. Oh, so you read it real quick when I moved it or no? Okay, I didn't think you did. Anger is the first response. Okay? These are, by the way, not the right responses. I'm just saying these are what we do. Okay? What's another response? Was that? Sadness? Okay, yeah. So we're hurt. Basically it's kind of the same thing. So, but the response, like what is the actual response? Yes. Huh? Revenge. Okay. So you guys, you kind of jumped ahead. So anger is one of the most common, the most common. And it could be overt or covert. You guys know the difference, right? Someone could be angry at you and they're screaming at you. Someone could be angry at you and I hate your guts. I'm not going to say a word to you, but I can't stand you. But I'm angry inside. Okay? Withdrawal. Is that real? Like, I don't want to see your face again. You hurt me, just leave me alone. Right? Again, covert or overt. Where like you could do withdrawal where I don't want to talk to you anymore. But I'm just being nice and saying good morning. But again, I'm just like completely withdrawing from you. Socially, emotionally, everything else. And I'm expecting you to come to me. Whenever you come to me, then I'll think about, how to deal with you, right? So anger or withdrawal. And by the way, anger sometimes is meant, obviously, these are all things that are meant to I'll tell you the common theme later, but you're trying to hurt somebody else back kind of thing, for anger at least. Gossip, where you start to vent. Like someone hurts you and you're like, you know what, this person, it's not just me, all right? This person does it to everybody. And by the way, at work, they can't stand him either. And his family, even his own family, and you go on. And so now you're trying to destroy the person through gossip. And obviously gossip means it's not real by definition, right? It's unverified information about somebody. But you kind of find peace, like, you know what? If you hurt me, I'll destroy you by letting everybody know something about you or destroying you intentionally through any way I can. So anger, withdrawal, gossip, or denial. Yeah, you didn't hurt me. You didn't faze me. You're not even on my level, right? And it really did hurt you, but you're actually saying it to yourself, nothing hurt, I'm fine, totally fine. Or even saying it inside, not to say it outside, because it would be crazy to keep walking around saying that, but I've seen people do that too, all right? Like where they're just telling everybody, I'm fine. And sometimes it's arrogance, like you're not even capable of hurting me. Like again, you mean so little to me that what you do doesn't affect me and all this other stuff. So arrogance, I'm going to be the bigger man. I'm not at your level. I'm not going to go to that, that kind of thing. So just fill in the blanks on how everybody does it, but it's the same concept, right? So what are the 4 unchristian responses again to being hurt? Anger, withdrawal, gossip, and denial. Are those real? You guys, I'm sure you, okay? Everybody has their favorite. Some people are just so calm they don't get angry, but they will go into denial. Some people are very active emotionally. They'll go into anger. They don't deny it, but they go into anger. Some people go into gossip. Some people, so everybody has their favorite sin. These are all sins, major sins, right? But the common theme in all this stuff is what? I am telling you, you hurt me and you will not do that again, right? You are trying to find a safe place for you to protect yourself. You think you're protecting yourself. When you get angry, you're like, I'm going to show them that you don't mess with me again. You do this again, you'll get the same kind of anger. If you do withdrawal, you're going to make people you're going to hope that they miss you, or that they can't be harming you anymore because I'm away now. And basically you're maybe trying to punish them by withdrawing. Like, you don't get to have my friendship anymore. You don't get to have this anymore. Okay? Gossip, you're hoping to sort of reaffirm that you're the right one, and you want people on your team. And again, you're on the safe side. This person's on the horrible side, and the destructive side. And denial, it's a false sense of security. Like, it didn't happen, it didn't happen, it didn't happen. So if it didn't happen, it shouldn't bother me. Why am I even upset? That kind of thing. Okay? Now that we know that, whenever you go through these feelings, know that you're going through unchristian or unhealthy even responses to being hurt. Like, you will not feel better by doing this. Guarantee you. Okay? So we know what the common responses are, and we know that they kind of have a general theme of wanting to feel safe and protected and not hurt again. Does it work? Does it work? It may work momentarily. Like, you may, you see people I will never forget this. This story that happened maybe 2-3 years ago. This mom is taking her son, her 5-year-old son, to school, to Christian school, as a matter of fact. So then she cuts somebody off, or somebody cuts her off. I'm sure you guys have maybe seen this story, right? Somebody cuts her off. What does she do? She insults him with a gesture of her finger, right? What do? They shoot at the car. Were they hoping to kill? I don't know. But they shoot at the back of the car to show her you insulted us. Remember, one person got angry. What do? They got angry and they showed it. And that anger showed in the gesture. Don't cut me off. Well, oh yeah? So the anger happened in response to anger. So a shooting happens, and what's the consequence? What happened to the 5-year-old in the back seat? He got killed. Took a shot, and on the way to school, a small example of what being hurt and responding to it. So the person, do you think that person, if they could do it all over again, would say, yeah, I'd still flip that person off. It felt good. They would do it? No. Did it accomplish anything? Even to the point where, did it warn the other driver that you're doing something wrong? It's versus, hey, watch out, you're coming to my lane, intentionally trying to warn somebody. No, what did it do? It fulfilled some immediate, gratification of, I showed them. They did this and I did that. They did, and then the person who shot, do you think they would do it again if they knew they were going to kill a 5-year-old? Probably not. I hope not. But all of these responses where someone was hurt, and someone was hurt, and someone was hurt, and anger was the response. And it's usually one of the more dangerous out of the 4. The most dangerous out of the 4. Not always, but usually. Okay? So, what am I supposed to do when anger, or when I get hurt? The wiser you get, the more you know how to respond. Okay? And that's where we have the answers. A lot of times I see, people going to books or clips on Facebook or clips on YouTube or whatever, and they get these quotes and they just put a nice little border around them. All of a sudden that quote becomes really cool. We don't know who said it. We don't know what they're talking about. It could be some godless singer, some actor, some actress, but it has a nice thing around it, so it looks like a nice famous quote, like Aristotle or whatever. So we're hearing a lot of junk, and it's constant junk now. And I think the devil is very good at saying, oh, you can't pay attention to a 5-minute video? I'll make him 30-second videos. Or you can't pay attention to 30 seconds, I'll do 3 or 5 second clips of a quote or something. And so we're being bombarded with garbage. And sometimes that garbage becomes whatever it is, like do whatever makes you feel good. You know what? Live for yourself. Life is too short. All this garbage and adds up, and all of a sudden it becomes your mindset. We got to be careful. Okay? So we go to the Bible for our instructions. What did God instruct us to do when we get hurt? The first response is to reconcile. It says, putting away all lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be ye angry and do not sin. Let not the sun go down in your wrath. Never give a place to the devil. So you can get angry momentarily. You can get angry, but don't give that any more time. It says, but do not let the sun go down on your anger. It means like correct that anger right away, because it's natural. We're a human being. We get angry. But what do we do after that? Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. You know, like don't let time pass. Some people say, oh, time heals. That's a fraud. It's another fraudulent statement, right? Actually, the devil loves that statement. Why does he love that statement? Because he'll tell you, you know what? I'm not saying don't forgive. Just give it time. And then, like, you'll calm down. I mean, I'm not saying, like, when in the heat of a conversation, if you're upset, yes, take a minute, walk outside, come back. But the devil will say, I'm not saying don't forgive. I'm just saying not right now. Give it a week. Give it a couple weeks. Let the person, you know, come back to you when they're ready to apologize, and then you can forgive. So putting away all lying, be angry and do not sin. Christ asked when he got slapped, why did you slap me? So it's okay to address what's going on. It's not wrong. Like a Christian doesn't say, you know what? No, as Christians we don't even ask questions. So if you think you've been wronged, ask. The longer it takes to reconcile, the bigger the role the devil will play. The devil loves to have a wedge between people, whether it's friends, husband and wife, father and son, father and daughter, sister and sister. If he gives them that wedge is time. Usually starts with time. So you fall for that, and be prepared for destruction to come up. He loves that. Again, I don't remember the verse, but there's a verse and I apologize, I hope it makes you look it up. There's obviously some words that would help you find it. But when Exodus happened, during the time the Israelites were being freed from Egypt, how many plagues happened? 10. It took 10 times. He beat him 10 times. The guy wouldn't listen. Okay, until they all drowned in the Red Sea, our people, right? But when Moses was leaving, and the final time, what did Pharaoh say to him when he said, go ahead and go? What did he say? Pharaoh asked him a weird thing. He said, leave your cattle behind. Do you think the Egyptians, the mightiest army in the world at the time, needed cattle from slaves? Why was he asking them to leave cattle? He wants to have something that he can still hold. Like he's basically saying, you know what, you guys left, but I kept your cattle. It's like, someone just wants to he may have took that parking spot that I wanted, but I keep his car or something. You feel like you got a little bit of vengeance. What did Moses say to him? And I love this. This is the quote I want you to look up. What did Moses respond to him? And it was one of my favorite responses in the Bible when the devil tries to talk to you. Moses said, keep our cattle? He said, not a hoof will be left behind. Like the little shoe on the horse will be left behind. So that just tells us don't negotiate, because Pharaoh represented the devil. The devil was like, all these sins that you're repenting from, fine. But leave me just one little thing, that keeps you cool with people. When you cuss, more people think you're intuitive and adaptive. Just, that makes you normal. Leave that one little. But if you do give into that, that's just the first step. That's just the first step. So you immediately realize you don't negotiate or you talk to the devil. But if you do, it starts very small. And that's why, anybody seen the Screwtape Letters or other Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis? That's the idea, right? It's incremental stuff, not big things. The devil's not dumb. He's very smart, but you're smarter. You have more than he does as far as resources and power. So the first thing is reconcile right away. After hurt happens, reconcile right away. Make it a priority. Not just reconcile right away, but it's like if I ask you, what do you got going on? You're like, you know what? I got into a fight with somebody. I want to take care. I want to fix it. And When are you going to fix it? Oh, well, first I'm going to get my car serviced. I'm going to register for classes, do this, go to the bank. No, like I got to, like it's bothering you. Like imagine if you had 2 flat tires and you got to go around a bunch of places. Are you going to say, well, first I got to figure out how to go. I want to get a coffee, and then like no, you have 2 flat tires. Like you're not going anywhere unless you get a ride. So you prioritize it. So first, it's think reconciliation as soon as possible. Don't let the sun go down in your anger, and give it priority. And it's written on the doors of the church, right? Is there anything more important than worship and communion? I mean, this is our whole faith is based on a couple sacraments, right? Very important sacraments, beginning with, obviously baptism, chrismation, confession, communion, right? So God says, like, you don't eat my body and don't drink my blood, you're not part of me and I'm not part of you. This is non-negotiable. Given all that, how important communion is and the body and blood of Christ is, what does Christ say? Therefore, if you bring a gift to the altar, meaning like a sacrifice, communion, and you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift at the altar. Now you come to church, you have unforgiveness for somebody, hate for somebody, you're wasting your time at church, especially before communion. Now you're just like, it's a joke, right? Leave your gift at the altar, or before the altar, go thy way, and first be reconciled to thy brother, and then come back. So it's conditional now, which is like really powerful. Like imagine if you see Christ, you come running to him, and he like says no, like I don't want to talk to you right now. That's pretty hurtful. But there's only one reason he would do that to you. If you really want to sincerely meet him. It's like, you hate your brother. Leave me. If you really love me, leave me. Go reconcile, then come back. And what is, you guys, like, if I show you like a little swoosh, what brand is that? Nike, right? Do I have to say even a word, like, or spell it out? No. Starbucks is intentionally like removing all the letters from the logo. They want you to recognize them without the logo, without the words, because they're like, we're so big that you don't need our name. You just see our logo, you know who we are. That's by design. They want that. Apple, you see an apple with a bite out of it, I don't have to say which company it is, right? That's marketing, like branding genius, because they're like, we're so big, we don't need to say anything. As a matter of fact, like there's a police department that doesn't even have a patch. Every other police department has a patch, but what are they known for? No patch. So you see that patch and you go, oh, LAPD. They don't have patches. So you get known for something, right? It's so powerful as far as like the marketing and branding. So what is a branding for a Christian? By this, they will know you are my disciples. If what? I think it's John 14:7, but again, my memory is terrible. By this, they will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So if I see, man, these people love each other, like genuinely. I don't mean like a guy and his wife or, I'm just saying any godly relationship. They truly love each other. They're his disciples. Hate each other, they can't be his disciples. So this is why it's more important than prayer. It's more important than communion. The deacon says, greet one another. That's not by accident. And that greeting used to actually be an embrace before in the church. And obviously for different logistical reasons and practical reasons, it became this thing, and then the devil enjoyed COVID where we had no greeting for a long time. Then it became like weird. I'm not sure if I should greet or not. But that's been in our church as long as our church has been there, because they understand the importance. If you can't do this, leave. And I've seen people like try to avoid each other in church. I'm like, what are we doing? So it's playing a game, right? So because why is it more important than prayer? Because if you are not reconciled, prayer is not accepted by God. So you can, when St. Paul says, even if I offer my body up to be burned, it's worthless because I have no love. Love, forgiveness. Obviously, if you love, you will forgive. If you forgive, you're doing it because you love, right? So the reconciliation is essential, and I want us to be reminded of that every time we hear the prayer of reconciliation. And also hear the greet one another, and remember this verse: leave your gift at the altar. Like, go. I don't want to talk to you. That's a pretty serious, like, you always imagine, like, what do we call the nave inside in Arabic? Anybody know? Where we have the icon of Christ on a throne in there? What is that called? Hodn al-Ab. It really is curved for a reason, because it's like Christ doing this. Right? Like, so you walk in church, like, here, hug me. I want to hug you. Right? So imagine he's saying, I don't want to talk to you. It's not him, but we're causing that. Okay, so first thing is reconciliation as immediately, then make it a priority. And then who takes initiative, right? So who's supposed to reconcile with who? Okay, what's your name? Tony. So let's say Tony offended me. Like, we were, at an event, and he made some comment about my job, my education, whatever, in front of everybody. Everybody laughed. I felt really humiliated. He thought it was a funny joke, and he moved on. He humiliated me. Who should apologize to who? Tony should apologize to me, or I should go talk to him about it? What is that? It's very smart, by the way. It could go either way, but this is more important. This is easier. Why is it easier for me to go talk to him about it? Perfect. Okay. So imagine if you're on a bus or a subway, and you're standing there, and somebody's standing right next to you very close. You guys are all holding that little bar, or the little grab bars or whatever, and it's tight, and then someone's stepping on your foot, right? Who notices this more? The person stepping on somebody, or the person being stepped on? Huh? Okay, yeah, 99% of the time, the person being stepped on is like, you're stepping on my foot, right? But the person stepping on your foot may think like, just, the bus has got some bumps in it, whatever, I don't realize it. So who's much more likely to know that a sin just occurred, or some offense just occurred between two people? The one who's offended. So take initiative to start the reconciliation, more so when you're the one being offended. Because it's the same thing. Because you can be angry at somebody, even though you didn't do anything wrong, but you're angry because of a sin. He may be like, I'm sorry, I thought you liked jokes, and I thought you're kind of a comedic guy. I thought you'd appreciate that. Of course it was a joke, right? So he had, in his heart, it's pure. He's just actually trying to we're trying to become better friends, and I know you like comedy, and people were laughing with you, not at you, and all this stuff, right? But for me, it really hurt. So who should take initiative? Both, but more so the person who's offended. It's easier, because they know they're offended. Remember, he's the person that had their foot stepped on, knows it quicker. But no matter who started it, it says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against you, so remember, now Christ is saying, if someone trespasses against you, go and tell him. Go and tell him. But do you do it like I get a microphone in church and be like, hey, you know what, Tony, you're a terrible person. It says between you and him. Don't bring your friends. Don't bring your crew. Like, we got to talk to you about something. We want to confront you about something. That's foolish. You're actually going to start more problems. You and him, right? And there's a process, right? First, it's you and him. If that person doesn't really see it the way you saw it, and you bring another person, and you bring the priest. But it's not supposed to be scandalous where you're trying to ruin this person by, hey, you offended me, and again, I'm going to destroy you. By doing, remember the first thing, gossip or withdrawal or anger. What was the other one? Gossip, withdrawal, anger, and denial, right? So immediately I tell Tony, hey, that joke you made, it's kind of, I felt like your intention was to humiliate me. He's like, no, I promise. It really was meant to just make a joke. If I be a dumb joke, I'm sorry. It's over, right? But now if I say, he should know. He'll know when he's, and I'm waiting. And until then, I don't want to see his face, or I'm angry, or I'm gossiping, or I'm in denial. It's not going to get fixed. And I shouldn't be taking communion, even as the offended. Does that make sense? So it's not just, it's not like you say, well, he's the one that offended me. I'm taking communion. It's him that should be worried about it. No, because I'm mad at him. I've got anger towards him. So no matter who started it, and the world will tell you, it's not your job to go and address this. It's their job. More fake advice from the clips and things that we read and hear. All right? So there are the steps. So remember, the first step is immediately start the reconciliation process. Number 2 is make it a priority. Number 3, this is important, take initiative. Don't be the person that says, look, I'm not saying I won't forgive them, but they've got to start it. Then you've got the problem. Because you don't know if that person even knows they've hurt you. And don't assume. Okay? I remember one time there was this person trying to get a hold of a priest. And they called like 15 times. It was a real emergency. And the priest didn't answer. Like 15, 20 times in like half an hour. Okay? And this priest is like, they've known this priest for 20 years. And then they came to church, and the priest was right there. And this guy's just staring down the priest like I really needed you. Like something major happened. And then for 6 months, he wouldn't talk to this priest. The priest finally said everything okay? And then, anyway, the long story short, there was a major outage for T-Mobile or Verizon or something. Didn't get any calls. He based 6 months of anger on something that the other person wasn't even aware of. But imagine if, God forbid, that person died, or something happened to him, or that priest, something happened to him, and this person has hate towards his heart, in his heart towards this person, and it was literally like a glitch in a phone system. See how much damage? And the devil loves this, because he's like, oh, chaos is where I thrive, right? So do it immediately, reconciliation immediately, make it a priority, take initiative, and then do it sincerely and with diligence. I've seen, we've all seen fake, I forgive you. Just leave me alone. All right? I forgive you. Isn't that what you wanted to hear? You got it. All right? Or, you say it, but in your heart, you're like, I'll just say it to get him off my back, get her off my back. I don't want to see him, but I'll just say the right things. I just don't with your heart. And then if you do that, again, you're going through this process. You take communion, you don't think God sees that? You're pretty foolish, if we don't understand that God sees and understands everything in our hearts and our minds. So in Romans 12:18, it says, and some people misuse this verse quite a bit. If it be possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. People say, well, as much as I can tolerate. In Arabic, it's actually a terrible translation. In English, it's a little better. In English, it's clear, as much as depends on you, meaning everything that you could do to live at peace with all men. So not like, that's it. My threshold has been reached. I can't do it anymore. That's, again, bad advice from the world and from the devil. As much as depends on you requires, so reconciliation requires 2 people. And it's not always complete. It requires 2 people to do it. But whoever, sorry, can you get up one more time? Sorry. So let's just say Tony and I, again, got into this argument. You can come here, center a little bit. We got into this argument, and I've now told him, you've hurt me. He's like, I don't care. You have soft skin. You have to thicker skin or something. So I tried to number one, let him know he hurt me, reconcile, and be done with it. So again, don't reach your hand. I know it's hard, but I do this. And Tony's like, no, I'm tired of people who are always offended and whatever. And so is the reconciliation complete? No. But am I doing my part? And that's what God does. His hand's always stretched out. And so if I did my part, does God see me as completing what I'm supposed to do? But is the reconciliation complete? It's not. But I did my part. So in front of God's eyes, I'm good. Same thing of Tony. If Tony's like, hey, I apologize. I'm like, I don't want your apology. His hands reached out. I don't want your apology. He did his part. He can take communion. The person who's, this verse again, thanks, Tony. I might use it again for a couple times, so stay close. So the person who does their part could sleep much better at night and know that it says as much as, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, your part. Live peaceably with all men. So if you're always in dramatic situations and you're saying it's not me, it's them all the time, the odds are it's not them, it's probably you, right? It's probably us. Because the person who tries to be at peace with most people usually could achieve that if they want to. But if you're constantly unable to make peace with everybody, then you have to really look, and there has to be a lot more discussions with your father, confession. Why can't you live at peace with people? Okay? So the enmity between us and God, who messed up? Who messed up between us and God, between man and God? He did? Okay, he didn't. We did. You know, Adam and Eve, he said you can eat of all these trees except for this one, because this one will cause you problems. You'll understand things you don't want to understand. You'll get into things you don't want to get into. What does man do? Does exactly what God told him not to do. And it's interesting, I've never paid attention to this, but what did God say to Adam and Eve as a warning? The day you eat of this, you shall what? You shall surely die. He didn't say, I'll kill you. Because God can say, I'll kill you. So the day you eat of this fruit, what shall happen to you? You shall surely die. Which means what? What's the difference between I'll kill you and you shall surely die? Who killed Adam and Eve, essentially, in their eternity? They did it themselves. They chose to kill themselves. But God had to keep his promise. But he could have said, you do this and I'll kill you. Because you've seen that too, right? If you do something like that, I'll kill you, I'll hurt you, whatever. So God wasn't threatening them like he'll do something to them. He was saying, you'll kill yourself. You should surely die. So who initiated reconciliation? Adam and Eve or God? God. By the way, like I said, I've said this before, I think at this meeting as well. When did the plan of salvation begin after man's fall? How long did it take? Huh? How much? Right away. The minute man fell, God began the plan of salvation. What took so long? Why didn't Christ come back on the cross and all this right away? What took so long? A couple of things happened. Why did it take Christ so long to come and start or show us the plan of salvation? Anybody know? No, so not only prepare us, but who had to show up? Someone worthy of carrying him. So if you ever forget the value of St. Mary, think about this. The plan of salvation, if St. Mary had come sooner, it would have happened sooner. Because you have to find somebody. He's going through righteous woman after righteous woman. Not worthy, not worthy, not worthy. This one is worthy. Does St. Mary's value appear clear now? Because it wasn't just like, you know what, I'm going to come in this year 0, BC. Or, the year 0 when Christ came, right? It was, there has to be the right conditions, including our beloved mother. So whenever our friends sort of downplay her, Christ would have come the next day if St. Mary is born from Adam and Eve. Right? So does that give you a visual of how, or sort of your mind starts understanding the value of St. Mary? And then what else wasn't there? The cross. The Romans weren't there during Adam and Eve's time. So all these things had to fall in place, like you said. But if all those, as soon as those things fell in place, Christ came back. Christ came. So just think, he didn't say, you know what, I'm going to think about it. God, he really screwed up. I can't stand that kind of thing, and he didn't do that. It was a desire immediately, but it just, like you said, it required man to be ready in the sense of the right, the right mother of God to be there and worthy of carrying the Son of God. So did God do his 100%? Absolutely. So think of God's arm as always being stretched out. And you guys have seen this, as a Da Vinci or whoever drew this thing that shows God stretched out. And then Adam is got his finger barely hanging in the air like that. That's kind of what man does. God is doing his 100%, and man is not even sure if he wants this reconciliation or not. It's sure, thanks, right? So, forgiveness, Christ spoke about it as debt, and this is just now there's different values, but just to give you an idea, when Christ gave that parable of the debt and the debtors, sorry, what time is it? 10 minutes, I'll be done. The idea of this person that God forgave, what he forgave versus what the other person wouldn't forgive his brother. So 1 talent is 1,000 denarii, or it could be 1,000 denarii, but about 1,000 average. Okay? So this man was owed 10,000 denarii, and this other person was owed, 1 denar is a full wage per workday. That's how much you work a full day. So in a year, you get about 365 denarii if you work the entire year, or maybe less. Okay? So the amount that was forgiven was 800, today's dollars, $800 million was forgiven by the one who owed the most, or the one who owed the most, right? So this person had their master forgive them for $800 million. I did the math, because again, the numbers vary, but it would take 170,000 years at the 1 denarii or so pace to pay back. Obviously, meaning you could never pay it back because you'll never live 170,000 years or whatever, 150,000 years, whatever it comes out to be, right? So God forgave man $800 million. The one that was forgiven went back to the person who owed him $80 and then roughed him up, took him to court, put him in jail because he owed him 80. So God just forgave you $800 million, and you're going to show somebody, like, no, I'm going to get justice out of you for $80. That's how pathetic we are as human beings when it comes to forgiving one another versus what God forgave us. So whenever you think about that number, and 60 million, 800 million, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, what we were forgiven and what we have a hard time forgiving, $80, $20, $30. Because remember I said in the beginning, what are the 3 things for forgiveness that you have to do to kind of really do it right? Acknowledge there's a problem, put a value on it, what kind of damage was done, and 3, make a decision to forgive knowing that there was damage done to you. Quantify the damage, like what was done, like how much damage was done, and then say, I know damage was done, I know how much was done, I'm choosing to forgive it. So here, when you look at the numbers, it's staggering to see what God is letting us get away with in a sense of how much He's forgiving us every time we sin constantly, and what we're unable to do to each other, with each other. And think of that as you'll never be able to forgive somebody anywhere close to what Christ's forgiven us. So that means it should be unlimited in our world, because we're only making 1 denarii a day, right? And so forgiveness is not an ability. Someone's like, I don't have it in me. I just can't. That's just not my personality. It's not an ability. It's a decision. Every single person can forgive. This is not like a talent. Like, God blessed you with the ability to forgive, not me. I have an anger problem. Or I have a memory that doesn't go away, or whatever it is, right? So understanding forgiveness, healing, and reconciliation. Again, forgiveness, look at it as debt, and you make a decision to let go of that debt. Some myths. I need some time to heal. I talked about this earlier. That is one of the biggest myths. It'll take us in very dark places, including, God forbid, if you die hating somebody. I don't have to say where we're going, right? Because you will not be forgiven. We say, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as is in heaven. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive. So since you didn't forgive, that's how much you will not be forgiven. You're holding on to the $80 that you want from somebody who did you wrong. Christ's like, I need the 800 million. Now, you can't produce it, you're done. If I would have forgiven the 800 million if you just let go of the 80. You're a fool. Okay? So when I feel better, I'll forgive. Another myth. You won't feel better. Not in a true sense. You will lie to yourself about feeling better. And people, like I said, it's denial. You will not feel better. Right? So forgiveness is not for the other person. And I know it's cliche, but it's not for the other person. It's for you. It's for your salvation. And we would be fools to give up our salvation for something that easy. That is a decision. It's not a talent. It's a decision. Okay? Facts about healing. If I, again, punch him in the face, he gets a bruise. I'm so sorry. I don't know what got into me. I got angry. I'm sorry. And I hope you forgive me. He's like, I really forgive you. Does his bruise go away? He's still bruised. He might sincerely forgive me. I might sincerely apologize. We're cool. But the damage is done. Like, he may have a broken jawbone or a cheekbone or whatever. Damage is done. So the healing is not like going to happen because forgiveness occurred or because reconciliation occurred. Okay? The healing comes from God. And once you understand it, it's like if I have a big scab and I'm like, we forgave each other, but the scab is still there, God will heal that. That's his job. Yes, Habib?
I've heard that healing can start once you sincerely forgive.
Correct. But I'm saying even physical healing, I'm giving you an example, but you're absolutely right. Healing will not start until you forgive. Some people think it's the other way around. I'm going to wait to heal so I can forgive. That's the devil always inverts everything, right? The devil says, be courageous when you sin, and then be embarrassed when you confess. That's the exact opposite. Be courageous when you confess, be embarrassed when you sin. So all these concepts are flipped upside down when you give way to the devil. In order to be healed from your wounds, forgiveness and reconciliation are essential. They're not like optional, like, oh, maybe that's one way to heal. It's essential. They're essential. And if you wait to heal, to forgive again, you will not heal. Christ forgave on the cross. His bruises weren't healed. His heart was broken. The blood was pouring down. Damage was physically and emotionally. You know, you guys probably look into this, but like many of the doctors that talk about, like they sort of analyze the way Christ died. There's literally something called broken heart syndrome. Like you actually die of a broken heart. And I've actually heard about somebody who was going through some major problems in their family and everything else. And the doctor said, you have something similar to this where your heart attack was literally caused by sadness. And they told him, you know, that, again, it's not my field, but so they said asphyxiation was obviously a factor, but look it up, broken heart syndrome, and there's a surgeon that talks about it in a very lengthy YouTube video. Okay, so but Christ didn't wait, like, let me just at least get some of these bruises healed before I even look at these people. He forgave on the cross, okay? So that's the healing part. So the restoration of the relationship, the restoration of the relationship to the same as before hurt began or better. So don't expect like when you do this everything correctly, it gets good. It actually becomes better. You actually have a better relationship. A lot of times people say we hated each other, something happened, and if you do it the correct way, you're actually building like a strong bond that it becomes stronger. Christ restored us to him, and many prophets were hoping to see that reconciliation occur, but it didn't happen, right? All these, from Adam all the way to John the Baptist, did they see the salvation with their eyes? No, they didn't see it with their eyes, with their human eyes, right? So a lot of people hope to see what we saw, or what we know about, and what we have witnessed through the fathers and the apostles, but didn't see it. So it's a blessing for us to see the whole process completed. And it's something that we should emulate. So again, I showed you the example of I put my arm out. Just because I pursue reconciliation, does it happen every time? No. Is that my problem? No. So when you choose to forgive and reconcile, don't expect the other person to agree with you, to accept and love you. Don't expect like, oh yeah, I didn't get, this person's not responding positively to me. What's going on? I was told this would work. No, you did your part. And the person that I know is always Christian is the one who's always willing to forgive. The person who I know is not Christian is the person who's rarely, if ever, willing to forgive. It's a very quick test. When I'm like, I hear somebody, I'm like, no, I tried before. And then they ask Christ, how many times should I forgive? What did he say? 7 times 70. Basically, that's another symbol for ad nauseum and infinity, basically. And we talked about the 800 million, $80. Think about that. Once you think you're close to 800 million, stop forgiving. If somebody owes you that kind of money, in the sense of like how much damage you've done to you. When you've been crucified and spit on, you still forgive. So anybody get to that point where they've been crucified or spit on or falsely killed or murdered? Obviously not. So Christ still did forgiveness at that point. St. Paul in Colossians says, and you that were sometimes alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he hath reconciled. So you were alienated, you were sometimes alienated and enemies in your own mind by wicked works. Like basically, you were a complete disaster, even to yourself, and he still loves you. And by the way, forgiveness includes forgiving yourself the proper way. What did Judas have a problem with? He was unable to not only forgive himself, but he didn't think Christ could help him. Like, Christ can't fix this. And remember, who does the healing? He does. Judas thought, no, everything's in my hands. If I can't forgive me, no one can forgive me. So don't feel bad for Judas. It was pride. Basically said, this guy can't help me. But the right-hand thief was like, this man, I met him only a couple minutes ago, but I believe this is the Son of God. So he only had a very short opportunity with Christ, and he used every bit of that opportunity. Judas had so many years, in at least 3 years in Christ's ministry, and the minute he met Christ, he only wanted the money thing. And he was hoping this guy would, hey, this man is going to be something special. He's going to run this kingdom. I'm going to be the treasurer. It's going to be great. And he was the only one that came kind of from a rich family, and he wanted to keep that. So I know sometimes we have this tendency to feel bad for Judas. Don't. Okay? His evil was not that he made a mistake, because St. Peter did much worse. Denied him 3 times and all kinds of things. But St. Peter knew, this is my salvation. He didn't forgive himself only, but he knew that the healing and forgiveness would come from Christ, so then he's able to forgive himself. Okay? So overview, again, when should we forgive? Wait till New Year's Day and start thinking about things? Or like on my birthday or on someone's birthday, or wait for some milestone? No. If you have a problem with anybody, I don't care who it is, I don't care how big or small the problem is, do your part. I'm not saying, now, wisdom is to confront with love but honesty. I'm not saying let people get away with anything. Like if I let you borrow my car and you crashed it, right? And then you say, can I borrow it again? No, I'm sorry. Your driving skills aren't something that's helpful for my insurance. I don't hate you. I'm not at it. I forgive you. But do I have to keep letting you use my car? But I will not let some things repeat. But the wisdom is, even though I'm not letting you use my car, I still love you, and I want you to know that, and that's clear. And by the way, what's one of the clearest signs of love from one person to another? One of the clear signs of love. Self-sacrifice is one way you show it, but what is the one way I know, like, this person really loved this person? I care for your salvation. So it means even if you don't like me, I still pray. I still want to see you thrive spiritually. I still want to see you gain your salvation. If I couldn't care less whether you gain your salvation or not, I don't like you. If I couldn't care less whether you're doing this or doing that, and I know that's going to kill your soul, a lot of times I see at funerals, we're crying, obviously, but when the person that departed, we know lived in a righteous manner, it's like, they're done. We're happy for them, like Abuna John, right? The people we should be crying over are dead souls, not dead bodies. Like if you know your friend is living in sin, but you have zero intention of confronting or, again, I hate that word, but addressing them to say, like, I can't just quietly, like, let you go to hell. I'm going to do my part. You can get mad at me, but I'm going to do my part. I love you. If your salvation is, I'm indifferent towards it, I don't love you. Does that make sense? Even if the most thing I could do for you is pray for you, I still love you. But if I'm like, I don't care what happens to them, they can literally, what do we say they can go to? Yeah, okay? So today's better than tomorrow. You don't wait till tomorrow because you may not see tomorrow. The person may not see tomorrow when it comes to forgiveness and reconciliation. Confront with love but honesty means speak truth but in love. Like I don't want to just say something that I know is going to hurt, but it brings no value. And also be factual. Like when you just say, you know what, you hurt me. How? You hurt me. That's it. You hurt me. What did I do? You know what you did. How is someone supposed to like genuinely apologize for you know what you did? Okay? So do it immediately. Make it a priority. Take initiative. And then these are just kind of practical ways. Confront with love but honesty. Be factual and articulate, not vague. And then ask for forgiveness and forgive. Again, be aware forgiveness is immediate. Reconciliation is a process. So forgiveness you could do right away. And you should. And you should never take communion if you're not forgiving somebody. Reconciliation takes time, which is the process that we talked about, right? And forgiveness is one of those steps. But you cannot reconcile without forgiveness. Like you can't say, I'm going to build our relationship back. I never forgave you, but let's just, whatever it is, let's try it again. No. It's not going to happen. Forgiveness is just one step in the reconciliation process. Be prepared that you may not feel better right away when the process happens. It takes time. This actually takes time after you've initiated it, not before. And you must always be open to reconcile, even if before they've refused to or they don't want anything to do with you. But you're always, I know people that say, my door's always open. Whenever you change your mind, I'll be here. Now you're good. But if you're the kind of person that's the other one, that's saying, I remember this person had a funeral, and they made a list of who they don't want to come to their funeral. I'm like, this is as evil as it gets. Like, not only are you not forgiving while you're alive, you're making sure your legacy of unforgiveness lives forever. Like, how foolish and dumb are you? Making a list of who I don't want at my funeral? You're done. Don't worry about it. But that shows you that sometimes men get so filled with hatred and envy and evil. And Pharaoh is an example of that, right? His heart is hardened. He has no desire for God. And like he's saying, even till the last moments and after my last moments. So I hope it's been beneficial and practical. I hope everybody tonight can think of somebody, I don't care who it is. You can say, hey, this thing occurred. It might have happened 5 years ago. I still am mad about it. Or whatever. I know it depends on guy or girl, young or old, whatever. We have different memories, right? Some people can go back 15 years and still remember something. Some people are like, week's over, it's done, I'm done about it, right? But you can't fake it. You can't say, I forgave him, but in your mind, you're like, remember that? It was Christmas 2004. Whatever, And I remember what happened. So be careful how you use your memory and what you do with it, and always be open to forgive, knowing that if you don't, we will not be forgiven. All right, thank you guys very much. You guys have any questions or anything? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Remon, for the beautiful talk, especially coming in towards the end of the year. And especially it's usually a time for a lot of people to put in like New Year's resolutions or goals for the new year. So it's definitely helpful to keep in mind forgiveness. And as Remon said, to start as soon as possible from today. Hopefully we can all take that back with us. I do have but a good size burning question for you. So it won't be too long, hopefully. We can get through it relatively quickly. Don't want to take too much of your time. But I remember a while back we've asked you guys to think about a parable about the unjust, or I guess you could say scandalous steward. Pull it up. All right. Okay, perfect. So the unjust steward. So this parable is in Luke chapter 16, verses 1, and most of the chapter, I think half of it. So it goes like this. I'll read it in the name of the Father, and Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. There was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called called him and said to him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward." So the word steward means service, just to ease things up. Then the steward said within himself, "What shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig." Dig means as to repay the master. "I am ashamed to beg. I have resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses." So he called every one of his master's debtors to him and said to the first, "How much do you owe my master?" And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, "Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, "And how much do you owe?" So he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, "Take your bill and write 80. So just to clarify, so that means if, let's say, I'm the debtor and I owe the steward 100 pounds or $100, I'm going to take the bill, the receipt essentially, and then just put 50 and then pay him 100, so the steward gets 50 and I get 50. Kind of like that. Then he said to another, "And how much do you owe?" Oh, we already said that one. So the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly, means smart. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon, that when they fail, or when you fail, they may receive you into an everlasting home. He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much, and he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust to the true riches, the heavenly riches, of course? And if you have not been faithful in what is another man's, who will give you what is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. So I know that was a lot, and probably half of you don't remember the first slide, but so here's like an overview of the parable, kind of just summarize what happened. So there's an accusation of mismanagement from the master to the servant or to the steward. So a rich man learns that his steward or his manager has been accused of wasting his resources, so he decides to fire him. So the steward has options, right? And he doesn't have a lot of time. So he realizing this, he will soon be unemployed and not wanting to resort to manual labor or begging, of course, for obviously reasons. The steward devises a plan to reduce the debts owed to his master by various debtors. So he's cutting down the debt that the master is owed or owes, but at the same time he's also making money off of it. And then obviously to get the favor of his master. And then debt reduction, we just explained that. The steward calls in the master's debtors and reduces their debts, aiming to make allies who might help him in the future. An unexpected praise, instead of the master condemning the guy for pretty much ripping him off and making money. Technically he didn't, but at the same time he did make money in an unfair way or by deception. The master praised the steward. So take some time to think about this parable, and I want to know your opinion about it. What do you think? What do you think is the purpose of Jesus telling us this parable compared to like the typical the talents parable, where it's like if you owe this much and you're honest, you'll get this much? This parable kind of goes against all of that stuff. So if you can pass the mic around. If you guys need reclarification or anything, yes? Oh, time? Yeah, you have time. I can give you some questions to think about. How do you feel about the steward's action reducing the debts? Was it smart, dishonest, or both? So, I mean, we do this sometimes, so pretty self-explanatory. Do you think it was necessary for him to do that? I mean, a manager probably knows a lot of people regardless of him making money off of the debtors. No? Yes? Yeah, take your time. I'll give you guys 2 minutes to discuss among yourselves. Then we'll get a response. Who who owes money to? So the master owes money to the debtors, right? So he's supposed to pay them back. So like, imagine if you were to go to Walmart, for example, and you buy lollipops, like $10 worth of lollipops, and you don't have $10. So now, like, there's a receipt saying you bought lollipops for $10. You need to give me this money. So then I'm the steward, and I can say, let me take your bill, and I go to Walmart, and I say, hey, Walmart, look, you want the $100 or the $10 worth of lollipops? You can take the receipt and you write 50, and I'll take the 50. So then or the 5, and I'll take the 5. So I made money off of the steward and Walmart, or sorry, the master and the Walmart. So I made $5 essentially. I kept $5 because I saved my master $5, and that $5 is in my pocket. Yeah, but he didn't have to pay the extra $5 to Walmart. He only paid Walmart $5 because the Walmart changed the receipt to 5 instead of 10.
So how is the man making money?
Well, because you can take that up with Walmart, but this is the parable, and we're trying to understand why. Yes. So in general, I'm asking about your opinion about the parable, but there's a question asking, was it smart, dishonest, or both, or of the steward's action? The steward. Yeah. I mean, not really, he technically is deceiving, but because the master didn't know about it, but he did him a favor, essentially. You think he's smart? Why?
Well, if you know that you're going to be, in a way, he devised an exit strategy,
Right.
right? Like he knew his time was coming to an end,
Right.
so he devised a strategy. Surely that strategy would have further hurt the master because he's going to those debt people that are owed money and saying, hey, I have a way to reduce your debt. So his strategy is, let me devise my exit and just try to get favor with them. But then in reality, like the master then sees that, okay, this person is actually smart because knowing that he is probably going to exit, he's going to, he kind of figured out a path for himself. But the master, in the long term, is the one who's probably benefiting because he sees, okay, instead of me letting him go, and, I'm still going to get, I don't want to say screwed over, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me keep him and just use. So it's like I know that this person's a liar, but let me use him to lie again.
Very good. Very good. Very good. I like the fact that you bring out the master kind of realizing that this steward might not actually be, like maybe the initial reaction was that, oh, the steward is just, he's using you, he's making money off of you, or he's whatever. It doesn't mention what he was making that was unfair, and that it was smart to fire him, and it was smart, the good choice was to let him go, because he is not smart enough to realize that you have the power. But I think later on it kind of explains how actually in keeping him, it's smarter or wiser because you can actually reduce, or the master was able to reduce the debt. So that's in the terms of the parable, which I like. But what does that really? Okay, I guess we can move on to another question. And this kind of goes towards the end. Why do you think Jesus mentioned the sons of this world can sometimes be wiser than the sons of light? So the sons of light are the Christian people, and the sons of the world are people that are not Christian. Why do you think Jesus said that the people of the world are sometimes wiser than the sons of light, than the Christian?
I don't know, but this reminds me of what Paul said.
St. Paul?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, it was one of the letters. I think it's Corinthians. Like the plan of God, the salvation on the cross, seemed fool to the people on earth.
Foolish to the wise and
Right.
wise to the foolish.
Something like that.
Mhm.
This really reminds me of that. Like, so the people like who are thinking about like earthly stuff
Mhm.
can be really like shrewd and smart. I don't know, because they are relying on like just like the word. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
to kind of clarify, so in the sense, yes, you're right. So he is referring to the fact that maybe, if you think about it, the people that ended up being Christ's disciples were not the most like educated people, the people that were followers of God, and those are the ones that didn't pick up on the clues. They weren't really smart. They were literate and literal, right? Versus people that are illiterate, right? But they were smart enough to realize that this guy's doing miracles. They overlooked the fact that, oh, he's doing them on a Saturday or a Sabbath. So that's one part of it, yes. I like that. You're on the right track, yes.
It also reminds me of being humble and humility.
Can you elaborate?
I mean, when you're full of yourself and you know you're smart, you wouldn't rely on something else. Like you would say, okay, I'm going to solve all my problems by myself. But when you're humble, you would seek wisdom. Like you would continue to seek wisdom.
Okay, didn't think about that one, but that brings up something just got to my head when you said that. So if the manager or the steward immediately said, like, why is this guy trying to play with me or like fire me? You know what? I don't need him. I just can go and do whatever I want. But then it says he realizes that he needed backup. He needed a backup plan. So instead of reacting with anger and like being impulsive, he instead was like, okay, let's take a minute. Let's think about what's going on here. How can I get out of this situation with the most advantages? So kind of really touch on that. Okay, there's a bunch of other questions. We're not going to go through that. So just quickly, 4 points. Oh, yes. Go ahead. Sorry. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, so you're saying we learn from the sons of the world the concept of improvement and wanting to always like take advantage of the situation? Is that? Okay. Okay. I see that. And I think one of the points kind of touch on that as well, which is the first point, oddly. Resourcefulness and forward thinking. The dishonest manager, knowing his time was short, which we kind of discussed, or you brought up as well, made plans for his future. So not just necessarily thinking about now, but also ahead. While his methods were unethical, which Christ emphasizes at the end, that the sons of the world, they could be shrewd or deceptive about their approaches to protect their future. But the concept itself, the forward-thinking concept, we can learn the importance of planning for the future, setting goals, and being resourceful, albeit in ethical ways. So Christ is saying, instead of looking at this situation as this guy is unjust, this guy is unfair, learn the way that he approached the situation so that you approach yourself the same way. And not in necessarily deceiving yourself, but learning that you can improve, that you can, and this is perfect because we're kind of going towards the end of the year, but looking into the new year, there are new goals, there are new levels that you want to achieve, whether that be in your career or personal life. So you always want to be in the forward-thinking mindset, and that also applies to your spiritual life. So how can I get closer? We're always like, oh, how can I read the Bible more? How can I pray more? So those are all goals, but we don't necessarily take action, or we don't sit down to plan it. So that's kind of one of the things that Christ emphasized in this parable. The second one, worldly wisdom versus spiritual wisdom. Jesus points out the sons of this world are often shrewder in their dealings than the sons of light. Like they think more about it. They take stronger decisions. We can be encouraged to cultivate not just worldly knowledge and savvy thinking, but more importantly, spiritual wisdom. So you kind of want to be master of both trades, but not of the world. We should be reminded that having integrity and being wise in matters of faith is paramount. Because you can lie to yourself, or we just discussed this also in the talk, is that you can deceive yourself into thinking that you believe one thing, but in actuality, you're not doing the right thing. So you might, in the end, be just deceiving yourself. So it's better to think honestly with yourself, but also in another way, not to be honed down in your head and have that forward thinking. The third one is the importance of trustworthiness. So you see the steward, he built relationships with those debtors later on. So even if he got fired later on, oh, you did me a favor, I will, help you out, I'll give you money. So there are resources out there for you to rely on. Versus if you don't put yourself out there, you don't think about the future, what will end up happening is that you come into a situation and you're just at face value. You have to figure out what to do, and it's chaotic. You don't have that planning ahead of time. Kind of the whole point of having a savings account, or if you invest into retirement, like there are life insurance, God forbid. The last point, relationships over materialism. So I don't think it would have mattered for the steward how much money he can make off of the debtors, or how much money in savings, or he would have gotten to the master if it wasn't for him actually building the relationship. Because in the beginning, if you notice that he doesn't mention, oh, how much money will I make as a beggar, or it wasn't the fact that he was begging for money. Like, it wasn't the fact that the money he's going to get from begging is not enough, but it was the actual behavior of begging. He would rather rely more on those relationships that he would build with the debtors. So just like that, while his methods were dishonest, there's a lesson about enduring value of relationships over mere possessions. So just because you have all the money in the world doesn't necessarily mean anything if you're in trouble and you need a lawyer. You probably want to have a good relationship with a lawyer, so when you're in trouble, you're not just in jail or prison. We can be reminded that genuine relationships and connections are more valuable than any material wealth. There's a fifth point, apparently. The danger of serving two masters. This is its own separate thing, but we cannot serve money and God. This was clearly said by Christ himself. But you should also understand that giving what is to Caesar and giving to God what is to God. So if you are, let's say you're at work and you're being dishonest, it's God, okay, yeah, it's about money, and it's not about God, but it is about God, because your behavior, dishonest behavior, has to do with God, because you are in the image of God. Okay, that's it. Any thoughts or any final add-ons? Anything? Okay. All right, let's pray and then conclude. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Through the intercessions of St. Mary, St. Justina, St. Mark, and all your beloved saints, hear us when we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses.